This is part 82 of my series on my Engage Model Railway project. Previous parts covered the project from its inception through the creation of the baseboard, selection and laying of track, building of scenic items, obtaining rolling stock, etc. The project is ongoing. This part just deals with a couple of little updates this week, a platform canopy from an old Graham Farish kit and a new LNER Teak buffet coach. First a review of the details, then some running video. I bought this model of an LNER Teak Gresley buffet coach on eBay UK. Not exactly cheap, but reasonable based on the normal asking prices for current production Engage coaches. And I've generally found the Daypole coaches very well done. I didn't have an LNER buffet or dining coach, but I did have a rake of Daypole Gresley Teak coaches, and I thought that this would go nicely with them. On the other hand, I'd had these old Graham Farish kits for platform canopies for a little while, and not been quite sure what, if anything, to do with them. I picked up a couple of these kits from tiny railroads in Delhi, Ontario, when Scotty there turned up a bunch of old Engage kits back last fall. They were only a few bucks, and I thought that they looked interesting and might be good for something. The instructions that come with these kits seem to be just generic instructions for the whole range of old Farish building kits, including the cottages that I built previously. These canopies didn't particularly require instructions. The plastic canopies came complete as a single piece. All that was necessary to finish them was to cut out the various paper pieces, these were not pre-cut, and then peel off the backing and stick the printed pieces onto the plastic canopy. The kit box did include a printed illustration of what the finished canopy was supposed to look like to guide you. It was a little fiddly to cut out the pieces, and then some of them didn't seem to quite fit where they were supposed to go and needed trimming a bit. No spare printed pieces were supplied, so if you messed one up, you were out of luck. Here's the finished canopy as best as I could do it on platform 3 of Colville Station. This was pretty much the only place I could see where I could use one of these canopies, so for now I only made one, although I had materials for 4, 2 kits each containing material for 2 canopies. The plastic pieces came with pegs on the bottom of the pillars, presumably designed to fit into holes onto Farish platforms. I concluded that it would be difficult to drill holes precisely for the pins and easier to work without them, so I just cut the pins off, snipped them with clippers, and then shaved off the stubs with a knife. I haven't even glued this, it's just standing on the bases of its pillars. Most of the buildings and details on Colville Station are not glued at the moment. This leaves me flexibility, but it does mean that they keep moving if I jog the board or whatever. I did glue down 1 or 2 things that couldn't be expected to stand on their own reliably, such as the station name boards and the staff figures. The news kiosk is from a Metcalfe card kit. I think that the Farish canopy blends in quite well with this station. Back to the buffet coach. Here it is on the bench, together with the detail bag that came with it. Well, perhaps detail bag isn't quite the right term in this case. The bag just contains alternate NEM couplings. Here's a close-up of the coach itself on the bench. And here without flash, which perhaps shows the colours of the model more accurately. The detailing of these Daypole coaches is really quite nice. As seems standard with Daypole coaches, the coach had NEM pockets and came with NEM Rapido couplings fitted, which is natural as those are the standard couplings for British Engage. Supplied in the bag in the box, which came with the box, were alternate NEM couplings, pairs of both long and short Daypole knuckle couplings. Here's a picture of the pocket and coupling. The pocket is the small square piece into which the coupling is fitted. The pockets on these Daypole coaches are not part of the bogies, although they might look as though they are when resting. The couplings on these coaches seem to perform well, even on tight curves, so it seems they're well designed. But you need to be aware that holding onto the bogie won't hold the pocket still when you're trying to change couplings. You need to hold onto the small pocket itself, which is a bit tricky to do. I changed the couplings on this coach out for short knuckle couplings, since I was using short knuckle couplings on all of my other Daypole LNER Teak coaches. The short knuckle couplings do make it very difficult to couple the coaches together. They certainly won't couple automatically when you just push one coach into another, but once the coaches are coupled, they stay coupled well, and they provide a very neat close join between the coaches, which although close, still functions fine on all of the curves on my layout. Here's the new buffet coach coupled into a little train of Teak coaches between a corridor first and a corridor composite brake. As noted, coupling a train up using the short knuckle couplings is a really tricky task. Basically, the only way I've found to get two coaches to couple together when both are fitted with short knuckle couplings is to lift one of the coaches up and sort of maneuver the raised end of that coach to hook its knuckle coupling over the coupling of the next coach as that sits on the rails. But then of course you've taken the bogie of the raised coach off the rails, so now you've got to manage to re-rail that bogie without undoing the coupling in the process. A fiddly business, as I say, and based on my experience at least you can expect to spend a minute or 2 or 3 hooking up each coupling, so getting a whole train coupled and properly railed can take a while. However, once everything is coupled and railed properly, so long as you didn't miss any improperly railed wheels, everything seems to function well. I've just hooked up 4 coaches here behind the balanced A4 Empire of India locomotive, which is also a Dapol model. As I've previously discussed in some detail in other videos, I'm less happy with Dapol locos than I am with their coaches. The finish and detail of the locos is just as good as that of the coaches, but on my layout with Kato equipment, Kato track, Kato power controllers, Kato sound boxes, I don't get very good running performance from the Dapol locos. They seem to require a lot more power than other current production locos, indeed more than many old locos, and they tend to run rather jerkily, slowing down and speeding up for no apparent reason rather than running smoothly and evenly. This place where I have the curved track coming under the viaduct is definitely a bit iffy. Full-length passenger coaches like these tend to actually touch the viaduct as they go through, but they did get through multiple times without any derailing. And here's the buffet coach coming round after going through the viaduct, and it's still on the rails okay. These coaches do also seem to wobble just a bit as they go over the Kato points, presumably because there isn't quite enough clearance underneath to avoid the Kato guide rails. At least I assume that's why it is, but they seem to get over all the points even at some speed without derailing. Here's the train in Colville Station behind the new platform Canopy. And here it is coming up the curve to go over the viaduct. The Dapol tender engines all have traction tyres and are capable of pulling a substantial train up a gradient. These 4 coaches certainly presented no problems. Here's the train in Colville again, now on the outer branch line right up against the new Canopy. And here's a bit of a close-up showing both the new buffet car and the new Canopy. So now let's have a look at some running video. So I got the camera set up here pointing close at the new Canopy, just so we can have a look at that. And there's the train pulling out from there behind the Canopy. Looks on Colville Station, and we'll just have one more look at the train going through Colville Station by this Canopy. Going through. I think I actually speeded the train up by accident there. And then we come round again, and we'll stop the train at the platform there in Colville Station. And we'll release the brakes and pull it out again. Alright, now we'll have a bit more of a general look at the LNER train running. The third carriage from the front is the new buffet carriage, coming over the viaduct there, and then down round the hill. hesitation there because of the dirty patch on the track. I noticed every time the train came down that cleaning line. Now you can see the carriages there. The carriages there are actually snagging on the viaduct, unfortunately, as they go around. They don't derail, but they're catching on the viaduct. The short knuckle couplings couple the coaches together really nicely. You know, they almost look as if they're properly coupled together, although they don't have any actual kind of corridor connectors, but they're just coupled together very closely. And because of the way Dapol have designed the bogies and the pockets for the couplings, they seem able to run, you know, even coupled together very closely like this and still get round fairly tight curves. I have 11-inch radius curves, they're the smallest radius curves. A lot of the curves on my layout are bigger than that now. I forget exactly what the Cato radiuses are off the top of my head. I think the 12 and something, and then the outer radius is 13 and something, but I know the sharpest ones are 11-inch. These, I think, are 11-inch radius curves. And although they don't look very natural, it went through that hesitation again. Although they don't look very natural, the coaches can get down there okay without any problems with their coupling or derail. See how it's hesitating there? Every time it did that, and I ended up checking it out, and I found there was a little patch of, I don't know, grease or something on the track there, and obviously that was enough to cause the loco to not pick up. Well, it never stopped. It never actually stopped and got stuck there. But every time it went down that hill, it hesitated. Except I think this... Yeah, see there, it didn't hesitate there because that's after I cleaned the track. I went and cleaned the track and gave it another try. And once I cleaned the patch of grease off the track, it was okay. And we're going around the outer line here so the train can go through the tunnel. Those Dapol Teak coaches do look very nice. And then we're just going to pull into the platform 2 at Colville Station, which is more of an appropriate length for this train really, and stop, and that's it for this little running session. So anyhow, small steps, but I'm quite pleased with the new buffet coach and with the Canopy on platform 3.